And that's how Paulie got the reputation of being the judge. Because anytime something like that happened, they had to sit down. And they'd sit around at the round table in the club across the street, the members only club. They'd sit around the table, and a guy would make an offer. If they couldn't meet his offer, or he couldn't meet theirs, then it was canceled. There was no deal. Paulie got the reputation of being a judge because he invented a way in which the unfortunate guy who was heavily in debt to the Shylocks could be saved from having to jump, run away, or commit suicide. Because sometimes, there were guys who would borrow off a Shylock. They'd find Shylocks all over the place. Give me $5,000, give me $10,000, and before you know it, they got $100,000 in debts. So they're paying $600 and $700 and $800 a week just to keep themselves above water. So they used to go to Paulie, and Paulie used to sit down. If there were 3 Shylocks there or 4 Shylocks, he would call them in, and they would sit down around a table, and he'd say to them, "How much you owe this guy? Okay, how much you owe this guy? Okay, how much you owe this guy?" And he'd say to one guy, "You are going to be his only Shylock." He'd say to the poor guy. In fact, he saved a guy that owed $100,000 out that was paying $60,000, who worked at Vincent's and used to steal like crazy in order to meet his payments, because he was paying 5 different Shylocks. Couldn't pay them. So Paulie invented a way in which he paid only 1 Shylock. So the poor bastard that was working for a living and couldn't afford to keep up his payments saved a lot of money. Instead of costing him $1,000 a week and him having to steal $1,000 a week, he made a deal with this 1 Shylock who paid all of the other Shylocks off to the principal. You see the difference? The principal was paid.
Right.
No
interest.
No vig. No
No
vig.
vig.
The only guy who collected vig was the guy who finally took on the thing. It got to the point where people were a little complaining, or some of the Shylocks were complaining about the way in which Paulie handled it, but they saw the virtue in it, because if they were the one who had control of this one guy, if they were the Shylock, they made money. They made a profit. The other 3 guys or the other 4 guys had to give up their vig, So he was paying vig to only 1 Shylock rather than 4.